How to make bridge tiles for the modular wargaming board. Hi there and welcome to Good Enough Scenery, and I'm going to be showing you how I made these two epic looking river, road, bridge tile type things that form part of the modular board here. So there's going to be two main tiles here. The first one is going to be this one here, which features the girdery style steel edged bridge thingamajig, and then the second one will be this one with the broken stripy barrier type thing. Now they're made exactly the same way for the most part, and then I'm going to show you how I did the sides at the end of the video. So let's get into it. So we start with our hot wire cutter, but you can also use a knife. And here I am cutting a 30 centimeter square thing into strips that are 10 centimeters. And you're going to need one tile, one part that is 10 centimeters, and then I took the other ones and I stripped them into a 14 by 10, and I need four of them, and they are going to form the kind of the river side bits. So I changed the angle on my hot wire cutter to the one that I've used on all of the other river pieces. If you haven't seen those videos, then do please check them out. This is so that they all match up. So four pieces that are 14 with the angle cut off, as I just showed you, and the central piece, which is this long one here. So that's 30 centimeters by 10 centimeters. I then took a bit of, I think it was the center of a cling film, and then just pressed down hard on one edge so that I could make a hole for like a gutter type sewer type thing going through the center. And once I'd done that, I got my daughter to take out some rage using a rolling pin on one of the pieces whilst leaving the other one completely fine. This was also spray painted black, which I neglected to film or mention at all, but I've just mentioned it now. Now, if you've seen the pavements or the other videos in this series, and you know exactly how I'm going to be doing the concrete edges, so scraping across a wire brush on one side and then going over it with aluminium foil, just rolling it across the surface there. Just to be extra fancy, I decided to do that on the side of the road tiles as well, because I decided that would probably be concrete. Now, in terms of painting it, did a creamy brown coat on. This is completely trying to get into every single nook and cranny. A lot of the colour gets sucked out of that. I did that did the same colour on the sides of the road as well, where I figured it would be concrete as well. And then once that was dry, you see a lot of the colour comes out. I put some of this light grey on and just kind of scuffed it onto the surface. Then whilst it's still wet, just putting a tiny drop of black paint on it as well. And then that allows me to scuff up even further, just completely randomly, and create a blacky, greyy, whitey, random colour that I feel like I feel like it ends up looking like concrete. Then was the dry brushing in white, so I just dry brushed the edge of the road pieces here, and then dry brushed the entirety of the concrete parts of both tiles. So there's 8 pieces for the two different tiles there. Then I stuck both of them down, so I was going to show you one of them here. So using instant nails here, which isn't instant, but it gives you some working time and a strong bond once it's done. So I just stuck the pieces down roughly, and then I know it's a 30 by 30 tile. Now, in one direction it's absolutely fine because it's determined by the width of them, but when you're going across the span where there's the gap in the middle, it's important to measure it and make sure that it's getting it right, and then painting the center of the rivery bit black. Now, just like with the other river tiles, I am doing a resin pour, and it's important that the resin stays in that bit. So to do that, I'm using acetate sheet and UV resin. So just cutting some strips which are going to be tall enough to make sure that they are covering the height that the resin is going to be. And then using the UV resin, you can use this like glue because of the clearness of the acetate sheet. And then just putting some on the down slope as well, so that it doesn't leak out the side. So just giving a gentle pull there, just to check that it's adhering properly. Now, I really didn't want a resin leak, and resin can get anywhere. So anywhere where the tiles were joining, I chucked some UV resin down and sealed it. Did that inside of the underneath of the river tile by the road tile by just dripping loads on the edge, and then just tipping it so it all kind of dribbled down. Then I took that outside. It was a nice sunny day, so you could see it, and I took that outside so that it could be set with the UV from the sunlight. From there, it was a case of putting the road markings on. So just as I've done the previous road tiles using these white and yellow pens, using a previous tile as a guide for where they're going to go, and just drew them on nice and simple. Strongly recommend you get some of those pens if you're going to do something like that. Also, like the other river tiles, as you see me doing here, just put a load of crap and flock inside of the river bit. So different types of flock. Cut up some bits of foam and kind of rolled them a little bit with the aluminium foil to make them look like rocks, and then stuck them down with a glue gun. Really great shot of my right shoulder coming up. I'm sure you were all signed up for that. So there it is in all of its glory. And then put in some gravel and stones in as well, just exactly like the other ones, just to make them really gross. Then was the resin pour, so it's a 50-50 mix, just whatever resin you get. That's linked to that one in the description, but just follow the instructions on that. Put a little bit of colour in it, and then, as you can see, nice dirty brown rivery sewery water. Gross. So I recommend holding this slightly above the surface by putting like a block underneath it, tipping the resin in slowly, seeing how much it settles down, seeing where it runs, and then using like a tool that comes in like the resin kit just to kind of push it around. And then once it's dried 48 hours later, you can peel off the acetate sides, leaving this cool solid bit onto the sides. So I'm going to make this out of plasticard, which is this stuff here. And first thing is to draw the design on, so I've got tried a couple of different sizes. I think that the slightly bigger one is going to be better. It's not that difficult to draw either, so this is basically, these are all equilateral triangles with 4 centimetre sides. So the whole thing is 16. As we've got a nice straight edge to begin with, might not reinvent the wheel. Let's just see how far along this goes. So it's going to go to there. Now, if you haven't got one of these, a set square, then get one because they're very useful. So this angle here, that is 60 degrees, which if you know your geometry, that is the angle on an equilateral triangle. So I'm going to get this lined up with here. I'm just going to draw a line up here, flip it over, same thing on the other side. Now we can measure 4 centimetres up along this line, same on the other side, and we can draw a line between. Now we can do 4 marks every 4 centimetres on the top and on the bottom. Now we can draw the internal triangles to this, which will be a little bit fiddly, a little bit time consuming, so, but it's not that difficult. So put a mark at 1/2 centimetre, that's kind of parallel to this line here, and I do the same right the way over here. I'm going to draw a line between these 2 marks. If we look at our design here, this is going to be this thing here, so we don't have to do it all the way along. Okay. Now we can measure it 1/2 centimetre in from here. See what that is? So that's just there, like that. And put another mark up here, or what I'm going to do, which is probably a mistake, is just to eyeball when this is parallel to that, and just do the same thing here. A smaller equilateral triangle in the middle of the bigger one, so I'm going to do that across all of the rest of them in exactly the same way. So that's ended up looking like this. Been a bit wrong now. Is it perfect? Possibly not. Is it good enough? Yes, it is. These lines here, the ones we drew first on the triangles, the bigger ones, those are going to show where we're going to be putting pieces later on. It's the smaller triangles that we're going to have to cut out. So, brand new blade. This is 1mm plasticard, so it's not difficult to get through, but it's something which has to have care and attention quiet you. A coffee machine shouting at me. So making sure that we're lined up with our line, and then what I'm going to do is slowly build up the depth. Because if you try and cut, you put too much pressure on and try and push too hard too soon, then the knife can easily slip on this stuff. And now I'm going to come from the other direction like this, go to our line there and just a little bit, not too hard. You can see that's the one line cut. Takes a little while and there's quite a few to do, and I need to do two sides of this as well, so it's going to be a time consuming thing, but I'm really hoping that this is going to have been worthwhile. I guess if you're watching this video, you'll have already seen what it looks like and you go, yeah, that was worthwhile. But I don't have the luxury of hindsight at the moment. I think the important thing here is to kind of start at the point of your triangle and then go along the line a bit, because it's the points which are, it's the end parts which are going to be the more difficult ones. So same again. This ruler is desperate to slip. Two sides done. And I'm gonna try something here. Or am I gonna try something, or am I just gonna be sensible about it? I'm gonna be sensible. I was just wondering whether if I scored this line, whether it could just snap off, but I think I'm really glad I actually went with the white, the 1mm white plasticard, because the thickness of that feels right for a steel bridge side. So it's going to take me a while, but I'm going to cut out the rest of these. It's taken a while, but those are the triangles cut out of the rest of it. So what I found was that this is a thinner blade. I'm not going to be trying to really cut with this, but this is perfect for scoring the line so that you can begin things off. So it's nice and sharp as this one is. It's a really nice score mark quite quickly. And then at that point you can go for your bigger one that you don't want to be using force of a snap away blade. Okay, next we're going to take our plasticard again, and we are going to cut a 1 centimetre wide strip. So the top, the bottom and the sides all need one, so yeah, 16, a 12 and 2 4s. So I'm going to cut another one of those and then cut those to length. Now I'm going to take this strip, which is 16 and mark a line all the way down the centre. Right, now that's done, we can do the scary bit. I could use a hot glue gun for this and that would give me more working time, but it would also likely mean that there's a lot of leftover glue splodging out. So I'm going to be bold and use super glue, which might be my first mistake. But, okay, no guts, no glory. My plan here is to cover up the entire line. If I cover up the entire line, then it should be dead centre. And the other thing is making sure it's vertical, but it's a flat surface on a flat surface, so it shouldn't be. Yeah, that's pretty good. I might have nailed that. So next up that, so I'm going to put some glue on. I'm going to make sure that this is lined up with that. Trying to fall, so let's make sure that it doesn't. Oh. There we have it, looking pretty solid. You know, you could leave it like that, that would be good enough once painted and stuff. But as always, I'm going to go and do some more. So involves cutting another strip of the plasticard. Right, we're going to cut a thin strip of this, very thin. I'm going to cut this into 4 centimetre pieces. And the idea with these is that they are going to be cross pieces to go in here. 5, 6, only 12 of these. So I'm going to cut those 12 and then I'll be back. Okay, so no prizes for guessing what happens next. So we have our pieces here and we are going to glue along the line here and then very carefully place this along the line and on to the next one. Go. So I'm going to do the same with the rest of them and then the same on the other side as well. This is where we're at. Not perfect but good enough, but what we're going to do to help this, so where the join is there, I mean we could have cut off things at perfect angles and whatever, but I'm not going to do that. So anywhere where it's a bit like could be better, so here's a great example. What I'm going to do is super glue. I'm going to chuck a whole bunch on there. I'm going to get a pinch of sand and drop it on there. And hopefully when spray painted it will look like it's a rusty join. So we can do that anywhere. If we put it like there, it could be a little bit better. So chuck some there. I do not like this play sand, so I wouldn't recommend getting it for this, but I bought it and then used something that wasn't perfect. It wasn't great, but yeah. So I'm also going to just chuck some super glue in random places there. And some places on this side that could be better too. I shall leave it a minute and then I'm going to tap it off. Not a lot should come off now because super glue dries very quickly, as you know, and then we're going to spray it silver. So one of the reasons I painted the underside when I sprayed it One, because it was just easier to do it than not do it. The other was so that I could do like a patch test with different blues that I've got without, spoiling the rest of it. And I've decided I'm going to go for this one here, Cloudburst Blue, not Cloudburst. I don't know what that is. So we have our two sides done. So I'm going to show you painting part of one, and it's not going to be particularly complicated. So I've got a Cloudburst Blue. Going to put quite a bit of that in there because it's not a small thing. And from here, in the most part, we're just going to be slapping it on. So when my brush starts getting a little bit more empty of paint, I'm not exactly going to, I guess I'm doing kind of a dry brush. I'm not trying to paint it. I want some of that kind of metallic to show through. So going over the rusty bits when the brush is drier. I'm going to be getting the paint on, but once the paint is on, I'm just going to try and even out any brush strokes just by kind of being a bit stipply with it. So that is what I'm going to do, and then I'll be doing some like coppery type colour and rust on the rusty bits, surprisingly enough. So, okay, these have been painted, but they are still a little wet, but that's okay. Yeah, Talos Bronze, going to paint the rusty bits, and then a little bit around it as well. Yeah, I can do that across all of the rusty areas on both sides. Next up, I'm going to take one of my favourite named paints, Screaming Bell, and I'm going to put a bit on the brush, but not too much. And it isn't, we're not dry brushing this, we're going perpendicular to the surface, just to add an extra colour to this rust. I'm not trying to get into every little detail, but just adding a bit more colour to it. Okay, final stage, we're going to use some Riser Rust, which is a dry paint from Citadel. This is our real bright orange rust effect. Hope you can hear jazz in the background. So I'm going to load this up, get the excess off. If I bring this up here, hopefully you'll better see. Really nice bright orange colour on it, just like you have with real rust. So I'm going to put this on the rusty bits obviously, but I'm also going to place it, just put a few bits on the edges there like that, just to show some extra areas of possible corrosion. So I'm going to do that on the rest of it. Now obviously I could just glue these on and it would be absolutely fine, but that means that this would be much more difficult to store, so I want to come up with a different way of doing that. And we're going to do that using some magnets. Before we do anything with the magnets, I want to make sure that this is going to go exactly where we want it to go. So this is 16, this whole thing is 30, so it needs to be 7 in from each edge. So I'm just going to put a tiny mark there that I can see. Next up, we are going to take some super glue. I might do it at the bottom of each of there and there. I was going to put some just there like that. I'm going to place these magnets in the centre like there. So this is the full stack of magnets going on there right now. And then the same at... I haven't got the best magnets, so I'm working with what I've got. So I'm using quite a few. I wanted to use some slightly wider ones, but they are too wide and they would poke out from underneath the thing, so poor planning on my part. So obviously only the nearest to that magnet is glued, but we are going to keep the stack on there. I'm going to line this up with our marks we put on earlier, which is there sure it's lined up with the edge. And we're just going to push down like that. And lo and behold, we have our two positions where our stack of magnets is going to go. So once again, just to be clear, line up the ends, line it up with the side. Once we're happy with the position, just going to push. There we have exactly where they need to be. Okay, now we've got our holes. I'm going to squidge a whole bunch of hot glue in there. And we're going to put it in there like that. We'll let that dry, and then the hope is that the magnets get stuck, apart from the one that's super glued to the underside of the bridge. So that'll do, pig. That'll do. Now for this other bridge tile, we're going to do something a little bit different. Rather than having the girder type bridge sides, we're going to have more of a barrier, which someone's clearly going to have broken because this tile is all kind of broken up. So got our XPS foam here, and this is 14 centimeters wide, which is going to be absolutely fine in terms of length for that. So we're going to cut a couple of the strips of that. There we go. That's all that we need. And then tear it up a little more. Notch that. Get our aluminium foil, and we're going to give it more of a concreted look. Yep, I'm going to be happy with that. And next up, going to paint these white. This is not going to be a dry brush. I'm going to do a strict coat all over in white, and you'll see why in just a second. Or if you've seen the finished build, then you'll know why already. So these barriers, I've probably given them 4 coats of white to get them this white, which is a lot of white to put on, and I've said white a lot of times now. Now, once we've decided how they're going, so on the top here, put a bit of a mark, roughly every, well, I'm doing pretty much exactly every ½ centimetre. I've got a set square here, but what I'm going to do is going to line up this edge of the set square with the bottom here, and then this edge with wherever we've put a mark. So, and we're just going to draw along that line. It doesn't have to be, we're marking an area rather than trying to mark the thing, so I probably pressed a little hard on the first couple there. But I'm going to draw a line across the top. And this is marking out an area. Yeah. Okay. So we have, now we're actually going to do it on the other ones. So lines are drawn on all of them. I'm going to use some Mephiston red, which isn't a colour I use very often, to paint alternate lines on this. Normally when I do craft, I'm just using very cheap paints to paint stuff. What I've found is if you use a cheap red paint, it can be a little bit watery. If you paint together something that's white already, it can end up being, turning it pink, which is not really what we're going for. Not really the vibe. So, and if this was a real life thing, it would be painted itself, which means that human error could have occurred whilst it was painted. So similarly, human error can occur whilst we're painting this. So let's bear that in mind when we're doing that, and be kind to ourselves if we make any mistakes. So nothing particularly complicated here, just painting every other section. So here they are, they're good, I like them. The only thing that I don't like about them is they look too clean. So I've got some skeleton horde contrast here, and mainly focusing on, I think the bottom is going to dirty this up a little bit. So when I first put the brush on, that's when I'm going to be concentrating on the bottom, because that's where most of the dirt will be, and then as it becomes less full of paint, I'm going to work a little bit higher up. But basically just like that. So just to make it look a bit more old. So I'm going to do that across the rest of it. All that remains now is to glue these down. So I've put a mark 7 centimeters in from each edge. Where this is kind of broken down, I feel like this should be a bit broken as well. So I'm going to snap it so it's in a couple of pieces. So nothing complicated here. I'm going to put a bead of glue along here. Try not to put too much on. And I'm just going to align it with the road and align it with this marker put down. And there we go. Tempted to break this one too. Probably broke that a bit more than I meant to. Hey ho, well let's just half glue it back together. Now that looks kind of cool. I'm going to put the glue on this bit. Something like that. Et voila! Really hope you've enjoyed making this along with me. I'm sure you haven't actually, and most of you probably aren't even watching, but I am really pleased with how these two tiles look. I think they're possibly two of the most, are they the best tiles? I don't know. I mean, I'm just really pleased that that plasticard thing worked out so well. I think it all fits in so nicely with the rest of the scenery, and I think the board is coming together really nicely. Next up, the tutorials will be all about the scattered terrain and the buildings and stuff that you're seeing around. I mean, the shipping containers have been done already, so if you're interested in them, then check that one out. But the larger buildings, those are going to be the things that are going to be covered next. But if you've enjoyed this video, then please hit the like button, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and leave any comments that you've got, good or bad, about the build so far, or anything you'd like to see me make on the channel. I'll catch you for another video soon.